Hey everybody, it's Grayson from Straw Hat Speculator. This is probably going to be the most important video I've ever put out on this channel, and some people might disagree with that, but this is also going to be fairly unfiltered. I recorded this already, and I didn't realize I didn't have my audio interface plugged in, so I had zero audio on it, and then when I went to edit, I realized that. So this is going to be raw. I'm not really in the mood to edit a long video, but it's a very important message, and I think it's quite relevant right now with what's going on in the Piece TCG space. But before we get into that, just some quick little things. First off, PRBO1, we have a lot of sales now. Over $900 for the English boxes, $920 actually for most of the recent sales. Keep an eye on this. Makes sense. We talked about the top 10 value if you use the God Pack as one hit. It is absolutely cracked. The other thing, OP13, these boxes are now up to around $700 USD on TCG Player. An unsealed box, by the way, unsealed, no wrap, sold for $630 USD, guys. $630, no wrap on it, crazy. But before that, we had sales at $700, $695, $700 again, $695. So it's legit $700 at this point. I'm fine saying that. It makes sense. I mean, this set is so stacked. We've gone over this. I don't want to waste your time. The one card I wanted to point out, which to me, this kind of just illustrates the ridiculousness of the market. Feel free to disagree. The regular parallel of the Luffy. So this isn't the manga. This isn't the red manga. Just the base parallel, alt art, whatever you want to call it. This was $20 in the middle of November. After release, it went straight down to $20. If we didn't boom in December, this probably would have been like a $10, $15 card. But instead, it is now going for $160, $165 on TCG Player. And recent sales, if you come in here and look, $195. So all I'll say is if you're buying this at $200, good luck. Good luck. That's all I'm going to say. Could it go to $4? Sure. Who knows? But I would never be buying this at $200 as an investment, even as part of a collection, like $200 for just the regular alt art. Insane. So that's really all I wanted to point out, I think. EBO3, this too, I forgot to mention. Prices are coming back down. We're in like the 530 range. So that like 600, 650, Rudy pumping on YouTube for a day there. That's kind of all gone away. But yeah, I still wouldn't buy these boxes at 530. Anyways, before we get into the topic of discussion today, I did want to jump in here and say, if you guys enjoy the content, I'd really appreciate if you leave a like on the video. It helps out a ton, getting these videos pushed out to more people. Also, if you want to work with me, I'm just a random guy on the internet, but I have 6 figures in TCG collectibles. I've been doing this for a few years now. I've made a lot of mistakes that cost me time and money. If you don't want to make those mistakes, you want to save your time and money, I would recommend working with me. Consultation links are there, mentorship program as well. That also gives you access to a community of great people who are doing amazing things in the hobby. So definitely recommend checking out those links. Now, to get into the topic today, we are going to be talking a little bit about Pokemon, and I'm going to be illustrating to you guys what happened in that market. And I know someone in the comments is going to be saying, why are we talking about Pokemon? It's a One Piece channel. I don't care about Pokemon. I'm going to give you guys 5 seconds if you're in a work environment or you have kids around to mute the video. I have a couple things to say to those types of people. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. So to anyone still listening, if you are that type of person, you don't care about the Pokemon market, fuck you. Close the video. Don't watch the shit. Don't learn. That's fine. For everyone else who actually wants to learn, we're going to look at the booster box data from the Sword and Shield era in Pokemon throughout 2025. Why is this important? In 2025, Pokemon had a massive boom. I think we're still probably booming in Pokemon, honestly, but it's important to look at what's going on in terms of supply on the market throughout the year. So back in April, things had already ballooned a decent amount. Fusion Strike boxes were up to like almost $500 USD. Evolving was like $1,300, which was crazy, but now it's really not that crazy. That was super cheap. And I just want to show you guys kind of how things progressed throughout the year up to about mid-September. And then from there, we'll see what happened, right? Because this is all going to tie into One Piece and what I think is going to happen in the future. But just bear with me for a couple minutes as we get through this. So going back to early April, I wasn't looking at all the Sword and Shield sets at the time, just the alt art sets. you can see Fusion, Brilliant Stars were selling well, Evolving Skies as well. And I think we should probably focus on Evolving and Fusion just because they are the top two sets from the Sword and Shield era that have booster boxes, in my opinion. I think most people would agree with that. They're going to be selling most of the time somewhere between like 3.5 to 5 boxes per day. You'll see that. The other thing I want you to look at is the booster box supply. So at the time in April, you had about 70 boxes of Evolving below 1550. Great. 40 boxes of Fusion below 572. Awesome. Just keep an eye on these numbers because it is fairly consistent, but it gets to a point where you can kind of see where things change. So we move down here. Not too much to see here. Sales volume. Evolving had a really great week there. Almost 7 boxes per day by it now. Keep going through these. Decent supply numbers here. Decent sales volume. Awesome. Fusion was going on a crazy run in May. It was now up to 570. There were 0 boxes listed below 680. So realistically, at this point on that day, this was like a $700 box, selling at almost 6 per day. Evolving Skies as well was moving up to around 1,200. That continued in May. You can see basically the next week we're at $700. Only 3 boxes for Fusion below 830. There were 4 boxes for Evolving below 1908. So this was a massive boom here this month of May in 2025 for these Sword and Shield sets. The month after that, we started to see a bit more supply come to market, 12 and 21. Sales volume came down a little bit. The week after that, we're back to like kind of normal levels of supply on the market, and sales volume was normalized as well, somewhere between 3 and 5 per day. So you can see when you go through those bull runs and things pop really quickly, supply dries up, and that's because people are buying out everything, but also because at the same time, nobody is listing new boxes. And why would you? I mean, if the box is moving up $50 a day, why would you want to sell now when you can just wait a week and it's going to be worth $350 more? That's kind of what we're seeing with the One Piece market right now with something like Carrying On His Will. I mean, the box is just going up $50 a day. And this is the data from Christmas. So I've done one more update. I just don't want to show the most recent update. If you guys are in the spreadsheet, you can definitely go check out those numbers. But coming back here to the Pokemon stuff, I started tracking Vivid, by the way, and you'll see all the sets I did start tracking. That's kind of irrelevant, but we get to around June. And when June comes around, sales volume starts to come down here. So we're actually sub 3 boxes per day for Evolving and Fusion. Sales volume, kind of normal. A week after that, picks up again, great. But this was kind of a slower time during early summer, June, if you want to call that summer or not, late spring, whatever, doesn't matter. Sales volume was definitely down. We weren't over 3 boxes again. There were weeks where Evolving shined, but Fusion was lagging a little bit. This continued throughout early July, and then getting into late July, you start to see some red here again. Evolving Skies was picking up. Fusion hadn't at this point, but the booster box supply was about the same still. We're somewhere between like, I don't know, 4 and 7 cases on the market below a 20% leg up, which was fairly normal for these sets for most of the year. But then late July rolls around, and this is where the Sword and Shield era starts to pick up again. People are talking Evolving, Fusion, Lost Origin. They're all kind of, the new targets, right, of investors. People want to pump these boxes up again, get them to a new floor, which I think they deserved at the time. So I don't think it was unwarranted. But you can see sales volume is going to start to pick up here, and booster box supply is going to start to come down over the next few weeks. So you can see August 6th here, 7 boxes of Evolving below 2565. That continues to get worse. 9 boxes below 2678. 14 for Fusion below at 983. And again, like this is a lot for you guys to process if you haven't seen the spreadsheet before. Don't worry. It's not super important. Just know that as the boom was going on, supply was coming down, sales volume was very high, lots of red in the spreadsheet, which means, the boxes were climbing at a fairly rapid rate. And this continued till about early September, where we saw boxes, I think Evolving actually, maybe towards the end of September, kind of peaked around $2,600 USD. And this is where things start to slow down. So if we go to the charts on TCG Player, mid-September, this is basically where all these boxes started to peak, right around 2,600 for Evolving. Fusion, it was around 1,030, 1,035. Lost Origin got up to around 830. I think we saw maybe like one or two sales at $900. But point being, mid-September, this is where things peaked. And after that, we saw like a 3-month correction on a lot of these boxes. Things started to come down. Now, what happened at the same time? Supply went up. So you can see here, the week after that, Evolving, 45 boxes below 31.15. Fusion, there were 60 boxes on the market below at 12.28. The next week, we had 56 boxes of Evolving and 22. The week after that, there were 62 of Evolving and 79 of Fusion. Then we go to 66 and 96. And you can see, I mean, market price might go up a few dollars here, but not much. So it was just more listings coming to market. And at the same time, too, this is important. If you look at sales volume, way down, Evolving sub 3 boxes, Fusion sub 2 boxes. It was the same thing up here, 1.43 per day. I think there was a week, too, that Fusion was actually sub 1 box selling per day by it now. The week after that, 66.95. Then we go to 84 and 64. And again, sales volume is very low, like 0.71 boxes per day. So there were 5, I believe, that sold that week, which is bad. Bad for Fusion Strike. We get up to 100 boxes of Evolving below 30.95 in early November. And then after that point, you guys see a lot of green here. Things do start to turn around. It starts with one data point here, Brilliant Stars selling decently. Then that turns red. And then after that, it stays red, goes back to green, but we move in the right direction. And then late December, early January, things are kind of booming again. We went through a cycle where the boxes started to rebound. And you can see that here, Evolving went from around 2,200. We're back to around 2,600, I believe, at this point. Fusion, we went from 840 back to around 1,000 on eBay. And Lost Origin as well is rebounding. But what is the point of this, right? The point is that public perception can change incredibly fast. When we were in, let's say, early November, actually go back a little bit further. Let's go to September. In September, mid to late September, everybody was saying Evolving was going to be like 3K by the end of the year. Some people even said $4,000, which is ridiculous. Everyone was incredibly confident. They believed in Pokemon. And then just a couple months later, we're in a correction. People are making videos on YouTube talking about a crash, myself included. I mean, you got to clickbait, right, guys? But, you know, people lost confidence in Pokemon and they started to dump their product. We haven't seen that yet in One Piece, but it will happen eventually. We will see a correction. Something will happen. People want to take profits. Maybe Bandai does a massive reprint. You're going to have some people lose confidence. And the reason for that is, unfortunately, a lot of people are overextended and maybe they have very limited experience in TCGs and they're not going to be mentally ready for seeing that line go down. So if you have 2% of your net worth in TCGs, this isn't going to apply to you. If you have 5% invested, probably not going to apply to you. But if you have 10% invested, 20%, 50%, God forbid, 100% of your money is invested in One Piece TCG, how are you going to respond mentally if prices pull back 30%? Are you going to be okay with that? What happens if these just go down and down and down and we see OP13 retraced to $200 or OP11 retraced to $120, right? I'm not saying that's going to happen, but a lot of people are not mentally prepared for what is going to happen and they're not properly allocated and they don't have experience in this hobby. And everybody just thinks that there's no supply out there, which isn't the case right now. I've talked to a lot of people over the past couple weeks who are eager to buy up everything, whether it's a black label at 4 or 5 times the price it was a few months ago, or, you know, buying sealed cases when they're up to 300%. And there are reasons to be buying, especially if you believe in this long term. I still strongly believe in One Piece over the next 5 years. I think sets like OP13 will be $1,000, $2,000 a box in the future. The value is there. The only way that doesn't work is if Bandai just prints it into oblivion, right? They go full Magic the Gathering game piece army, destroy their collectibles, and probably in essence destroy their game. So if they're smart, they won't do that. Those boxes will eventually get there. Same thing with 09. I mean, that could be $1,500 to $2,000. OP11 should be $1,000 in the future as well. You have the gold, silver Luffy, the manga Luffy that's difficult to grade comparatively to other mangas. There's so many things going for the One Piece TCG, but in the short term, it doesn't mean that there's nothing out there. It just means that people are not willing to list their boxes right now. It means that when a correction comes, we will see more supply on the market. You will be able to get things cheaper. But if you're not properly allocated, or if you get scared and you panic sell, you're not going to be able to take advantage of the One Piece TCG long term, right? Maybe you make a bit of money because the short term boom, that's amazing. You got in early enough. But for a lot of people, if they were buying on the way up, or if you're buying now where I feel there's not really a ton of short term value in some of the products at this point, you could be in for a turbulent 2026, depending on what happens. So I want you guys to be mentally prepared, because I see way too many people get into TCGs with no experience. They don't know how the market works. They don't know how reprints work, how corrections in this hobby work. And I think just in general, right? Myself included, like I haven't been part of a cycle where multiple years have passed with no growth on products, but that has happened before. If you go back, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have watched Alpha Investments, go watch Rudy's videos on Pokemon from like 2016, 2017. I mean, did he have some from 2015 maybe even? Like he was buying stuff that nobody wanted and it was dirt cheap, but he just couldn't sell it ever. So he threw it in a bathroom, came back in a few years, and everything had, exploded because of the COVID boom, Logan Paul, etc. If you guys are around Pokemon, and he made great money. But there were multiple years where that stuff sat and he couldn't profit off of it. And that could happen again at the drop of a dime in TCGs. And you really do have to ask yourself, are you willing to sit on this stuff for 5 years and see no growth? Are you willing to just throw it on a shelf in a climate controlled environment and forget about it for 5 years? Because if you can do that, you're going to win in this hobby. But I think there's just way too many people investing in TCGs right now who, even if they say that they're willing to do that, are probably not going to be willing to do that when push comes to shove. So talk to yourself, have a genuine, honest conversation. And if you come to the same conclusion I come to, great. But if you feel like this is not the place for you to be in, or you feel like you might be overextending, or you feel like you want to take some profits because you're up 300-400%, it probably means it's going to be a good time for you to take profits and de-risk a little bit. And that's fine. Some people will shame you. And in theory, if you're trying to optimize, you're trying to maximize your ROI, it might not be the best thing. But for some people, it probably is. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Hopefully that wasn't too ranty. Hopefully it made sense as well. Again, this was second time recording this, and I'm getting tired. I need to just edit this, upload, go to bed. Big day tomorrow, but thank you guys so much for watching. Genuinely, it means a ton. If you do have any questions, feel free to leave them down below. With all that said, stay safe wherever you are in the world, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.